Exodus 25-6 says, "You do not bow down to them, nor serve them, for I, Yehova, your Elohim, am a jealous Ale, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me." Well, notice in this passage, there's only two types of people that are mentioned in the entire world. There's those that love Yehova, and there's those that hate him. But showing mercy to thousands, to those who love me and cherish my commands. Because loving him, as Charlie looked at last week, loving him is to love his word. He mentioned when Yeshua says, "If you love me, you shall keep my commandments." He's not saying, as a result of you loving me, please keep my commandments. He's saying, if you do love me, you shall keep my commandments, because my commandments are me. Okay, you cherish my commands. Deuteronomy 7:9-10 says, "And you shall know that Yehova your Elohim, he is Elohim, the trustworthy Ale, guarding covenant and mercy for 1,000 generations with those who love him and those who cherish his commands, but repaying those who hate him to their face, to destroy them. He does not delay to do so with him who hates him. He repays him to his face." Oh, we'll realize what hating him is. Obviously, we can appreciate it on a almost superficial level, that to hate him is to not do his commandments. See, to those of us who are here who believe his word, this would be a terrifying thing. But it's quite amazing to me that those who actually hate him, the fools, don't appreciate what this is saying here. Saying, look, I'm going to repay you to your face. I'm going to destroy you. Again, when people are face to face with him, when they are being judged by him, that is obviously the outcome. But notice again, there's two types of people that are mentioned: those that love him and those that hate him. And when we look through this, we're going to look at what it is to love biblically and what it is to hate biblically, because it's quite interesting. I've left these partitions in. They were originally in just to help me organize it as I was going through, organize the verses. But I think that it's useful to kind of keep people where we're at. Okay, so being commanded to love, that's quite a strange concept, isn't it? Joshua 22:5 says, "Only greatly cherish to do the command in the Torah, which Moshe, the servant of Yehova, commanded you, to love Yehova your Elohim, to walk in all his ways and to cherish his commands and to cling to him." The word cling there is the same word that when it says that a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. Okay, it's cleave to him, cling to him in the same way, and to serve him with all your heart and all your soul. I don't know if it's ever seemed like a weird thing to be commanded to do before. Love Yehovah with all your heart and all your soul. Okay, I'm not sure that I'm quite there, but I'm commanded to do it. It's quite weird. Psalm 97:10. "You who love Yehovah hate evil." Okay, I hate evil. I'll definitely do that from now on. "He guards the lives of his kind ones. He delivers them out of the hand of the wrong." Hate evil and love good, and set up judgment in the gate. It might be that Yehovah Elohim of hosts shows favor to the remnant of Yosef. "And now, Yisrael, what is Yehovah your Elohim asking of you, but to fear Yehovah your Elohim, walk in his ways, to love him, to serve Yehovah your Elohim with all your heart and all your soul, to cherish the commands of Yehovah and his laws which I command you today for your good." What else does he require? He just wants you to do this. But I don't know, if you don't do that, then where do you stand with Yehovah? If you don't love Yehovah, you just received the command to love him. What are you supposed to do with that? Micah 6:8 says, "He has declared to you, O man, what is good. And what does Yehovah require of you but to do right, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your Elohim," which is actually the same thing as keeping his commands and cherishing him, because we're told that this is the outpouring of that anyway. Matthew 22:34-37. "The Pharisees, having heard that he'd silenced the Sadducees, were gathered together. And one of them, one learned in the Torah, did question, trying him and saying, 'Teacher, what is the great command in the Torah?' And Yeshua said to him, 'You shall love Yehovah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your soul, and with all your mind. And you bear in mind that this guy who he's speaking to isn't in this position. So what's the answer? How do we love Yehovah? Tells us how to achieve it. Deuteronomy 6:4-9 says, "Hear, O Yisrael, Yehovah your Elohim, Yehovah is one." And this is the key to the whole thing. The word here is Shema. Okay? And in context, again, it can mean different things. It can mean literally to just hear something. People are described in the Bible as having heard something that they do not end up obeying. It can also mean to trust and obey. It can also mean to really absorb something into yourself and to kind of make that a reality, to truly Shema, to do it. And this is the key. It says, "Shema, O Yisrael, Yehovah your Elohim, Yehovah is one. And you shall love Yehovah your Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might." Okay, there you go. If you Shema Yehovah, then you shall love Yehovah. Because these things don't come about just naturally. Charlie was looking at this last week, the idea that faith comes by hearing, faith comes by Shemaing. Okay, we saw the commandment before that said circumcision's nothing, uncircumcision's nothing, but faith, which comes from Shemaing, working through love, which also comes from Shemaing. See, the thing is, people won't come to the point where they will Shema the word of Elohim. And to Shema, to obey, to, absorb it, to do it, to listen to it, and to, really make it a part of you. People won't do that at all. They will say, "I obey Yehovah," but do they obey Yehovah? If there's anything in which they're not just, as a response, they hear something and then they do it, which is what it is to Shema it. If there's anything, then they're actually disobedient. Because, I don't know, say you were someone's boss again, and you told them to do a load of stuff, and they did all of the stuff apart from this one thing which they just kept on refusing to do. Would you describe them as obedient or disobedient? It's obvious, isn't it? They're disobedient. They would not Shema your voice. Okay, so to Shema is to truly just submit in everything. And when something comes and you're told, no matter how kind of difficult it is for you, you just put it into action, you do it. That is what a Shema response is. You Shema, and you shall love Yehovah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your soul, with all your might. And these words which I'm commanding you today shall be in your heart. It's amazing, isn't it? Okay, you Shema the words, you just start to actually do the words, and you don't have to have loved Yehovah previously, but if you do them, then you will come to faith and you will love Yehovah. Because Charlie gave the example last week, didn't he, of the shower, taking the shower. He couldn't have appreciated what it was like until he actually took the shower. And that's exactly how it works. Until you Shema Yehovah, you will not love him. The commandments will not be in your heart. And you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. This just kind of becomes who you are, okay? It envelops you. It just becomes how you operate. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. Because you're either going to have that there, or you're going to have the mark of the beast there. You're going to do the things that come from that. Okay, we've looked at it before as well. It's not saying tie a box on your hand, tie it on your forehead, just what you think and what you do. Similarly, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. It's not talking about getting a mezuzah or getting your chisel out and cutting them on the doors. We do have a mezuzah on the door, and there's no harm in doing that, but that's not really what it's saying. It's just saying that's how you will govern your household. But this is the first step. So if you're thinking, maybe I don't love Yehovah, maybe I'm just not there, this is where you need to start. Romans 10:17, Charlie looked at it last week. So then belief or faith comes by Shemaing, and Shemaing by the word of Elohim. You get the word of Elohim? Okay, got that. Shema, the word of Elohim. Now I've got faith in it because just doing it shows me that it is correct. It's called something that is axiomatic, something that is self-proving. Deuteronomy 30:15-18 says, "See, I have set before you today life and good and death and evil. In that I am commanding you today to love Yehova your Elohim, to walk in his ways and to cherish his commands and his laws and his judgments, and you shall live and increase, and Yehova your Elohim shall bless you in the land which you go to possess. But if your heart turns away and you do not shema, and shall be drawn away and shall bow down to other gods and serve them, I have declared to you today that you shall certainly perish. You shall not prolong your days in the land." So, how do we love Yehovah? We shema him. What happens if we don't? We do not shema. This word is shema. If you do not shema, your heart will turn away from him. It's just that simple. You can't really understand the word of God academically and then be convinced of it. I mean, you can, but you won't end up loving Yehovah. You won't end up walking it out through faith. Only if you shema and you've got that response to it will you end up in that position. Deuteronomy 7:11-12 says, "And you shall cherish the commands and the laws and the judgments which I command you today to do them." Okay, so this word here is shema, to keep. People get these things confused, don't they? They think keeping the commands is doing the commands. Yeah, I do keep the commands. I do the commands. Not what it's saying. There's a different word for do. Okay, we've looked at it before. It's asa. So shema really has a different connotation. It's to cherish. "And it shall be, because you shema these judgments and shall cherish and do them, that Yehovah your Elohim shall guard with you the covenant and the kindness which he swore to your fathers." So you see it again. Okay, because you've shemad the judgments, you shall cherish them and do them. Deuteronomy 30:1-10 says, "And it shall be when all these words come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you shall bring them back to your heart among all the Gentiles where Yehovah your Elohim drives you," and we know how that's done now, "and shall turn back to Yehovah your Elohim and shema his voice, according to all that I command you today, with all your heart and all your soul, you and your children." How are you going to do it with all your heart and all your soul? Just starts with that very simple thing that virtually no one does, and it's to just trust and obey the commandments. You do that, you're going to end up having faith, and you're going to end up loving Yehovah. "Then Yehovah your Elohim shall turn back your captivity and shall have compassion on you, and he shall turn back and gather you from all the peoples where Yehovah your Elohim has scattered you." See, we've got this big Torah movement, haven't we? The people coming back and they're doing the Torah. Problem is, they're not shemaing the Torah. When people begin to shema the Torah, then he's going to gather us from all the peoples. And, maybe this will happen soon. Maybe this is just people getting to that point. But right now, they don't. They do the commandments, or they do some of the commandments. The reason that they don't do all of the commandments is because they don't love Yehovah. They don't have true faith in him. And that is because they haven't started at that very simple starting point of shemaing his word. "If any of you are driven out to the farthest parts under the heavens, from there Yehovah your Elohim does gather you, and from there he does take you. And Yehovah your Elohim shall bring you to the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it, and he shall do good to you and increase you more than your fathers. And Yehovah your Elohim shall circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed to love Yehovah your Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, so that you might live." So we've looked before that the play out of time has achieved this. Okay, ultimately the play out of time has achieved this. It's put them in this position. But what actually specifically does it in the circumstance is they begin to shema his word. And through them shemaing his word, their hearts become circumcised, and they begin to re'eh, they begin to see, they begin to understand who he is, and they begin then to have faith and to love Yehovah with all their hearts and all their souls. Yehova your Elohim shall put all these curses on your enemies and on those who hate you, who persecuted you. And you shall turn back and shema the voice of Yehova and do all his commands which I command you today. And Yehova your Elohim shall make you have excess in all the work of your hand, in the fruit of your body and in the fruit of your livestock, and in the fruit of your ground for good. For Yehova turns back to rejoice over you for good, as he once rejoiced over your fathers, the patriarchs. If you shema the voice of Yehova your Elohim, to cherish his commands and his laws which are written in this book of the Torah, if you turn back to Yehova your Elohim with all your heart and all your soul. He's just waiting on this. If you shema the voice of Yehova, it's so simple. It's just that thing that nobody does. Like, I do all of the commandments. That's keeping the commandments. I do love Yehova. You love him with all your heart and all your soul. I don't know. That might be a bit difficult. I'm not sure that I could do that. Just shema his word, and then that will be the outcome. Joshua 23, 6-11 says, and you shall be very strong to cherish to do all that is written in the book of the Torah of Moshe, so as not to turn aside from it to the right or to the left, so as not to go in among these nations, those who remain among you, and make no mention of the names of their gods, nor swear by them, nor serve them, nor bow down to them. Okay, and we've seen before, we live in a modern society, the idea of gods in our society, people think that looking to a deity as a god is a bit, a bit outdated, a bit old-fashioned. So they've fashioned themselves other gods, other things that they lift up and idolize above Yahweh. And people find it so difficult living in society, okay, not to turn aside to the right or to the left, and to not go after these other gods and to cherish those gods. But cling to Yehova your Elohim as you have done to this day. For Yehova has driven out from before you great and strong nations. As for you, no one has stood against you to this day. One man of you shall put 1,000 to flight. For Yehova your Elohim is he who is fighting for you, as he has promised. And you shall diligently guard yourselves to love Yehova your Elohim. Okay? We look at the scriptures sometimes and we can think, why aren't these things happening? Why aren't these amazing works of God happening? And it's simply because his people will not shema. That's the key ingredient. And when they realize that and they begin to shema, then all of these things will fall in place for them. So again, Galatians 5 verse 6, for in Messiah Yeshua neither circumcision nor uncircumcision has any strength, but faith, which comes from shemaing, working through love, which comes from shemaing. So it's saying essentially, circumcision doesn't matter, uncircumcision doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is whether you shema the word of Elohim. Proverbs 4:4-6 says, then he taught me and said to me, let your heart hold fast my words, cherish my commands and live. Get wisdom, get understanding, do not forget, and do not turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not leave her and let her guard you. Different word here for guard. It's a natsar, okay, but it also means to keep and to guard, but it's used in a different context throughout Scripture. Love her and let her watch over you, okay? It's amazing. We looked the other week. Let wisdom watch over you. You think, I'd love it if all of the things in my life just went really well. It would be brilliant. Let that happen. Shema his word, have that response, and then that's going to happen. He's just all the way through his word. Don't turn away from the words of my mouth. Let your heart hold fast to my words. Cherish my commands and live. People don't cherish his commands. People might do his commands. They might get together in a big religious group and do them for all the wrong reasons, but they won't cherish them, just simply because they will not absorb it totally into themselves and just do that as a response. That's what the word says, I'll do it. That's what the word says, I'll do it. And you'll notice the people who are strongest in faith have that. They do that. That's why they end up loving Yehovah. You can look at people and go, why do these people love Yehovah and these people don't? It's very simple. Those people shema Yehovah, other people don't. So the love of the truth, Charlie looked at this last week as well. 2 Thessalonians 2, 9-11 says, the coming of the lawless one is according to the work of Satan with all power and signs and wonders of falsehood. Okay, scriptures talk a lot about falsehood, which we'll see. And with all deceit of unrighteousness in those perishing, because they did not receive the love of the truth in order for them to be saved. And for this reason, Elohim sends them a working of delusion for them to believe the falsehood. Okay, is this just a new thing in Scripture? Or is this existed anywhere else? Psalm 119, 118 says, you have made light of all those who stray from your laws. All those who stray from your laws, notice, they were keeping his laws, but they've strayed from them. Okay? All those who stray from your laws, for falsehood is their deceit. Okay? You can see that in this. The wonders of falsehood, the deceit of unrighteousness, for them to believe the falsehood. What's the falsehood? Those who stray from your laws. It couldn't be any clearer. Jonah 2 verse 8, I love this translation of it. Those observing false worthlessnesses forsake their own mercy. It's great. I like the translation as well, which calls them lying vapors or false vapors. These are the things that people choose. You've got Yehova, who's the foundation of everything, from whom everything comes, the only thing of any substance. And the thing that people choose to love instead is just nothingness. Nothingness that he's just conjured up in order to test them. And they'll go after that. They'll love that. It's bizarre. 2 Thessalonians 3, 1-6 says, for the rest, brothers, pray for us so the word of Yehova spreads rapidly and be praised as also with you. And that we might be delivered from unreasonable and wicked men, for not all have belief. For the master is trustworthy, who shall establish you and guard you from the wicked one. And we trust in the master as to you, both that you do and shall do what we command you. And the master direct your hearts into the love of Elohim and into the endurance of Messiah, which is an interesting statement to me. Okay, so we're commanded to love Yehova. We think, how do we love Yehova? The Lord directs our hearts into the love of Elohim. Again, and we've seen the process by which this comes about. It's by Shemaing his word. But we command you, brothers, in the name of our Master Yeshua Messiah, that you withdraw from every brother who walks disorderly and not according to the teaching which you received from us. Very timely. Psalm 119 says, you have made to cease all the wrong of the earth like dross. Therefore, I have loved your witnesses. And we'll draw to a close on this part. But I just want to have a look at some of the things that are written by David, who has the love of the truth, because they're amazing. Psalm 119 says, it is time for Yehovah to act, for they have broken your Torah. Therefore, I have loved your commands more than gold, even fine gold. David doesn't care about false worthlessnesses. He doesn't care about lying vapors. He loves the commands. Why? Because he Shemas. Verse 159 says, see how I loved your rules, Yehovah. Revive me according to your kindness. Oh, how I love your Torah. It is my study all day long. Your commands make me wiser than my enemies, for it is ever before me. I have more understanding than all my teachers, for your witnesses are my study. I understand more than the aged, for I have observed your rules. I have restrained my feet from every evil way, that I might cherish your word. I have not turned aside from your judgments, for you yourself have taught me. How sweet to my taste has your word been, more than honey to my mouth. From your rules I get understanding, therefore I have hated every false way. How different is that than people who will come to the word and they'll debate over every little point. Do we need to keep that? Oh, I'm not sure, I'll need to go away and have a think about whether or not I need to keep that. Maybe consult some nonsense that says that I don't have to keep it. Maybe that's what I should do. How different is that to a Shema response? A Shema response would say, okay, the word says that, I'm going to do it. If I find out at some point that I didn't have to do that, then that's fine. You know, I'm in a much better position. I would rather shema the word and do it as a result than try to find some kind of way out of the word. And we'll look a little bit more at the mindset that goes behind that in the second part. I rejoice at your word as one who finds great treasure. I have hated falsehood and loathe it. Okay, what do they have, the ones who do not have the love of the truth? The wonders of falsehood, the deceit of unrighteousness. Okay, different response. I have hated falsehood and loathe it. Your Torah I have loved. I have praised you 7 times a day because of your righteous judgments. Great peace have those loving your Torah, and for them there is no stumbling block. Yehova, I have waited for your deliverance, and I have done your commands. My soul has cherished your witnesses, and I love them exceedingly. Great peace of those loving your Torah. For them there is no stumbling block. This is something else that you will see in people who shema the word. They've got complete shalom. There is no stumbling block to them because it doesn't become a point of, should I do it? Should I not do it? Maybe I won't do it. Maybe it's okay to do it. Maybe I'll do it this once and then won't do it again. No, there's none of that. They just shema the word. Oh, the word says it, I'll do it. Change myself. Brought myself in line with it. They have great peace and they have great shalom. They're the people that you'll see who walk strong in faith with a strong love for Yehovah. Proverbs 4:4-12 says, then he taught me and said to me, let your heart hold fast my words, cherish my commands and live. Get wisdom, get understanding, do not forget. Do not turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not leave her and let her guard you. Love her and let her watch over you. The beginning of wisdom is get wisdom. And with all you're getting, get understanding. Exalt her and let her lift you up. She brings you esteem when you embrace her, when you shema. She gives your head a fair wreath. She shields you with an adorning crown. My son, hear my son and accept my words, and let the years of your life be many. I have taught you in the way of wisdom. I have led you in straight paths. When you walk, your steps shall not be hindered, and if you run, you shall not stumble. Does not wisdom call, and understanding lift up her voice? On the top of the heights along the way, between the paths she has taken her stand. Beside the gates leading to the city, at the entrances she shouts, O men, I call to you, and my voice is to the sons of men. Wisdom calls, okay? Do men hear the voice? I'm sure that they all hear the voice, but do they shema the voice? You simple ones understand insight, and you fools be of an understanding heart. Listen, shema, for I speak noble words, and the opening of my lips is about straightness. For my mouth speaks truth, and wrongness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are in righteousness, none of them twisted or crooked. All of them plain to him who understands and straight to those who find knowledge. I'm sure you've remarked before at how amazing it is that some people just don't understand it when it's so clear. It's so clear, it's so obvious, it's just crystal clear, and it's so easy. Accept my discipline and not silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold. For wisdom is better than rubies, and all the lights are not comparable with her. All the lights are not comparable with her. Again, it's just something the fools can't understand. They'll go after the things that please them. They'll go after the things that please their flesh. They'll go after something else that they think they're going to be able to derive delight from. But it's just not there. It's just a lying vapor that comes up. They go after it because they think, I know better than Yehovah. They might not consciously think that in their head, but that's the implication of what they're saying. I, wisdom, have dwelt with insight, and I find knowledge, foresight. The fear of Yehovah is to hate evil. I have hated pride and arrogance and the evil way and the perverse mouth. Counsel is mine and sound wisdom. I am understanding. Strength is mine. Okay, the spirits of the Lord, the spirit of counsel, spirit of wisdom, spirit of understanding, spirit of strength. By me kings reign and rulers make righteous decrees. By me princes rule and nobles, all the judges of the earth. I love those who love me, and those who earnestly seek me do find me. Okay, this is what Yehova possessed. Okay, he loves those who loves him. The rest he hates. He hates those who hate him. Riches and esteem are with me, enduring wealth and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold and fine gold, and my increase than choice silver. I walk in the way of righteousness in the midst of the paths of judgment, to bestow substance on those who love me and to fill their treasuries. And we've looked at what it is, how we end up in this position. How do we end up loving wisdom? Romans 8:28-29 tells us, we know that all matters work together for good to those who love Elohim. How do you love Elohim? Shema Elohim. To those who are called according to his purpose. Because those whom he knew beforehand, he also ordained beforehand to be conformed to the likeness of his Son, for him to be the firstborn among many brothers. And we've seen the connection. Those who love Elohim are the ones who Shemad Elohim. When they Shema Elohim, they end up conformed to the likeness of his Son, because you can't end up anywhere else if you Shema the words of Yehovah. Because if Yeshua did anything, he certainly Shemad and Shemad the words of Yehovah. I put this verse in because I thought Charlie's going to love this verse. I have hated half-hearted thoughts, but I have loved your Torah. I just thought that was amazing when I read it. Okay, so in the next part, we're going to look at kind of related things. We've looked at love. We'll look at now hate. What it is to hate Yehovah. So it's not necessarily what we imagine. We know that it's not keeping his commands, perhaps, but worth looking at. Okay, so this verse should be familiar to us. The soul who does whatever defiantly, whether he is a native or a stranger, he reviles Yehovah, and that soul shall be cut off from among his people. Because he has despised the word of Yehovah and has broken his command, that soul shall certainly be cut off. His iniquity is upon him. So there's some things within this that we need to understand, to really understand the depth of what this is saying. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to look at is this. What it is to revile Yehovah. We can kind of understand in the English what it is to revile someone, but there's a little bit more going on there. Okay, so this is the word revile in the Hebrew. It's a gedaf. And when it's used of men, you would say that you revile somebody. But when it's used of God, of Yah, really what it's closer to is to blaspheme him. Okay, it's not necessarily to revile him like you'd revile another man. Ezekiel 20:23-27 says, also I lifted my hand in an oath to those in the wilderness to scatter them among the Gentiles and disperse them throughout the lands. Okay, he said that he was going to do this. In Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28, the curses, tells them that he's going to do this. It's interesting that from his perspective, when he told them that he was going to do this in his word, he swore an oath to them that he was going to do this. Because they had not done my judgments, and they rejected my laws and profaned my Sabbaths, and their eyes were on their fathers' idols. So it's exactly the same for people who do these same things now. Doesn't matter why they're profaning the Sabbath. If they think, I need to do this just so that I've got money to live. I need to work on this Sabbath. Or whatever the nonsense excuse is for not shemaring the word. He's sworn an oath to these people as well that he will treat them in a certain way. And I also gave them up to laws that were not good and judgments by which they would not live. So when he sent them out to live among the Gentiles, he gave them up to the laws, the legal systems of the nations in which they were scattered. Laws that were not good, judgments by which they would not live. And he doesn't mean they won't do the judgments. What he means is if you do the Torah, you will live. It will be life to you. By these laws, though, they don't bring life. And we can appreciate that, the legal system that we live under at the moment. And I defiled them by their own gifts as they passed all their firstborn through the fire, so that I might appall them, so that they know that I am Yehova. Therefore, Son of Man, speak to the house of Israel, and you shall say to them, thus said the Master Yehova, in this your fathers have further reviled me, blasphemed me by committing trespass against me. Isaiah 37:23, whom have you reproached and reviled, reproached and blasphemed, because it's talking of Yah. And against whom have you raised your voice and lifted up your eyes in pride? Against the set apart one of Israel. And this is one of the things that they don't get. They don't get these things. They don't believe the word. If you thought that you were in the position where Yehovah has sworn an oath to deal with you in the same way, and he was saying to you, who do you think you're approaching and blaspheming here? Who have you lifted up your voice and your eyes in pride to? Well, he says the same thing to all of these people who live in this way. Okay, so we understand what it is to revile Yehovah. Okay, and we understand how you revile Yehovah. Now let's look at what it is to despise the word of Yehovah. Because we kind of understand what it is to despise, don't we? We can understand the word despise. But it's another one of these words, like Shema, like Shema, another word that we'll look at later, that we understand one of its translations, but in its context, it means something yet further than that. Okay, so this is the word. And the outline of biblical usage says that it means to despise, to hold in contempt, to disdain. And holding contempt is pretty close to where it's getting to. If you want to understand what a word actually means, you got to use something like this, Blue Letter Bible. This is a good guide to kind of what the word might mean. And bear in mind that there's the different forms of the verb here, so we don't just read down the list and say, it could literally mean any of these things on this list. It depends what form of the verb is used, and to find that out, you need to use a verb conjugation chart. It's not quite the tool that people think it is. You've got to use it in a particular way. But there's another section on Blue Letter Bible, which it's called the Gesenius's Hebrew Lexicon. Now, a lexicon is much closer to giving you a definition of a word, okay? And the entry for this word is here. I want to bring this to your attention. He who makes light of, okay? So it's to make light of something. It's to not esteem it, to lightly esteem something. In 1 Samuel 17:42 it says, and when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he despised him, for he was a youth. He didn't look at him and go, oh, he's just a kid. I hate him. He lightly esteemed him because he was a youth. 1 Samuel 10:24-27, and Shemuel said to all the people, do you see him whom Yehovah has chosen, that there is no one like him among all the people? And all the people shouted and said, let the king live. And Shemuel declared to the people the rulings of the kingdom and wrote it in a book and placed it before Yehovah. And Shemuel sent all the people away, each to his house. And Shaul went to his house too, to Gibeah. And with him went brave men whose hearts Elohim had touched. But the sons of Belial said, what? Does this one save us? And they despised him and brought him no presents, but he kept silent. So again, it's not really that they hated him, they despised him. It's that they esteemed him lightly, and they were like, him? Whatever, we're not going to bring him any presents, we're not going to esteem him as the king. 2 Samuel 6:16 says, and it came to be when the ark of Yehovah came into the city of David, that Michal, daughter of Shaul, looked through a window and saw King David leaping and dancing before Yehovah. And she despised him in her heart. She saw him leaping about, dancing before Yehovah, and she didn't hate him. She didn't just instantly despise him. She looked at him and she lightly esteemed him. Like, look at this fool. What does he think that he's doing? This is what we are described as doing with the word of Elohim when we just decide, no, actually, this is more important. I'm going to do this. I'm going to break this commandment for this reason. I know, it's difficult, and whatever nonsense that people want to say is the reason that they're breaking the commandment, and people will have all these lists of excuses, and they'll make it sound wonderful, and they'll, you can see how they've deceived themselves through believing these things. But what they're actually doing is they're lightly esteeming the word of Elohim. 2 Samuel 12, 9-10, this is when David wants to take Uriah's wife, so he sends him off to die in battle. Why have you despised the word of Yehova to do evil in his eyes? You've lightly esteemed it. You've thought that it was a thing that you could get advantage through breaking, and it's not this thing that you absolutely have to keep. So it's not this Shema response to it, where you have to keep it. It says it, so you do it. He doesn't have that response. He lightly esteems the word. You have killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and his wife you took to be your wife, and you have killed him with the sword of the children of Ammon. And now the sword does not turn aside from your house, because you have lightly esteemed me. Think about what it actually takes to do that. Think about what it takes to decide you're not going to do what the word of God says. You know what that says, but you actually think that you've got another choice in the matter, that you could do something else. Think about what that says to Yehova. It is to lightly esteem him and to not understand what the word of God is and how important it is. 2 Chronicles 36, 11-16, Zidkiyahu was 21 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And he did evil in the eyes of Yehova his Elohim. He did not humble himself before Yirmiyahu the prophet, Jeremiah, who spoke from the mouth of Yehova. And he also rebelled against King Nebuchadnezzar, who had made him swear by Elohim. But he stiffened his neck and hardened his heart against turning to Yehova, Elohim of Israel. Also, the heads of the priests and the people trespassed more and more according to all the abominations of the Gentiles, and they defiled the house of Yehova, which he had set apart in Jerusalem. And Yehova, Elohim of their fathers, sent to him by his messengers, rising up early and sending them, for he had compassion on his people and on his dwelling place. But they were mocking the messengers of Elohim and despising his words and scoffing at his prophets, until the wrath of Yehova arose against his people, until there was no healing. You see the context that it's used in here. Okay, mocking, scoffing, despising. He shall turn unto the prayer of the destitute. It's Yehova who will turn to their prayer. He will esteem the prayer of the destitute. He shall not despise their prayer. He will not lightly esteem it. Isaiah 53:3 is an interesting use of this, because it talks of Yeshua, obviously, and it says, despised and rejected by men, a man of pains and knowing sickness, and as one from whom the face is hidden, being despised, we did not consider him. Changes the tenor of that verse, doesn't it? It changes how you understand that verse, that men lightly esteemed him, lightly esteemed and rejected by men. They did not consider him. Just nothing. Ezekiel 16:58-59, you shall bear your wickedness and your abominations, declares Yehova. For thus said the Master Yehova, I shall deal with you as you have done, in that you have despised the oath by breaking the covenant. You've despised the oath. You've broken the covenant, and you might think, oh, well, everybody sins every now and again, don't they? I've just decided to break it. I just broke it. But it's to lightly esteem the oath that you've made with Yehova, because you don't actually understand it. You don't understand the gravity of what you've entered into. You will understand the gravity when you stood before him, and everything else will flee from you, and there'll be nothing that you can reach out and touch for any kind of safety. All that there will be is you and him and your transgression against him. But do you see how words in Scripture, like despised, like keep, like hear, have a completely different connotation depending on the context in which they're used? And Hebrew is quite I know it's almost a little bit more malleable than English, and we can have these words, but Hebrew is something that it's, you've really got to understand what the word itself means. And then you've got to put it into the context of the other words used around it. So our English translations actually fall very short of truly portraying this. So this is an important thing to look at. Ezekiel 22 verse 8, you have despised that which is set apart to me. You have profaned my Sabbaths. Again, to most people it just seems like nothing. Seems like nothing. Oh, I had to do it. I just made the choice to profane the Sabbath this week. What's the problem with I've just profaned it? In doing that, we're despising him. And this word does mean despise. It means to hate. But what I'm saying is there's a larger context to what it means to despise. It is to lightly esteem. To despise something, to hate something scripturally, is to lightly esteem it as well. Romans 2:23-24. You who make your boast in the Torah, through the transgression of the Torah, do you disrespect Elohim? And this is the same word. This is the word that's used in the Septuagint, the Greek word that's used in the Septuagint when it's this word despise, used here in the New Testament. Do you disrespect Elohim? So again, we get another little bit of a flavor of what this word means. For the name of Elohim is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you, as it has been written. And as we know, Paul draws these things from the Torah. He's not just, I'll write a load of stuff. There's no coincidence that it's got the word for despising the word of Elohim through transgression of the Torah. The name of Elohim is blasphemed among the Gentiles. He who walks in his straightness fears Yehova, but he whose ways are crooked despises him. So if we look at the verse again, but the soul who does whatever defiantly, whether he is a native or a stranger, he reviles Yehova, he blasphemes Yehova, and that soul shall be cut off from among his people, because he has despised the word of Yehova and has broken his command. He's transgressed the Torah. That soul shall certainly be cut off. His iniquity is upon him. So we can see the similarity to what Paul is saying here. He mentions blaspheming him, he mentions breaking the Torah, and he mentions despising him in the same verse. But something to focus on in this verse is what it's actually saying. We can understand the concepts within it now. When it uses this language, it always kind of draws my attention to it. When it talks about the soul that does this, okay, the soul shall certainly be cut off. And in the Septuagint, the word means obliterated. The soul shall be obliterated. And we read things like the soul who sins shall die. And we understand that it doesn't just mean the person who sins shall die. It's talking about their soul, their actual soul, their eternal destiny. The soul that does this. Because if you think about this command, there's so many people who just think that they're getting away with doing this command. They're getting away with lightly esteeming his word because they lightly esteem it inside. They're getting away with reviling Yehova by breaking his commandments when they don't think that anyone can see. But what he's saying here in this command is, really, it doesn't matter, because the soul that does that, they're going to be cut off. They're going to be obliterated. They're going to suffer the second death. The soul that sins shall die. So all of the people who are going about breaking this and thinking, well, I'm not going to be put to death, am I? Death penalty doesn't stand anymore. It's not going to be that bad. Missing really what the verse is saying. Malachi 2 verse 9 says, and I also shall make you despised and low before all the people, because you are not cherishing my ways and are showing partiality in the Torah. I just think this is an amazing verse. I'll make you despised and low before all the people. We read the verse a few weeks ago where it said that their foolishness will become obvious to all. Okay, people do become despised and low in the eyes of the people. We were talking about this before as well, about how you can recognize in people the ones who are keeping the Torah and the ones who aren't. Because you are not cherishing my ways, and it's obvious if someone cherishes his ways or not, and they're showing partiality in the Torah. You're doing the Torah, all well and good, but you're showing partiality in it. You're doing the bits that you want to do. You're fashioning a God for yourself. Psalm 10 verse 13 says, why do the wrong contemn Elohim? He has said in his heart, you will not require it. They lightly esteem him. This is what it is to despise his word. The wise fears and turns away from evil, but a fool passes through and is confident, not realizing the soul that sins shall die. The soul is going to be obliterated, cut off from among the people. Malachi 1:6 says, a son esteems his father and a servant his master. And if I am the father, where is my esteem? And if I am a master, where is my fear? Said Yehova of hosts to you priests who lightly esteem my name. But you asked, in what way have we lightly esteemed your name? And they don't get it. We're priests, aren't we? Okay, this is absolutely as relevant to us. People show so much more respect to the people in their lives who they are immediately accountable for. But they will lightly esteem Yehova. They'll lightly esteem the things that he said and think that they can transgress against them. When we come to this is the mindset that I was talking about before. Okay? Law versus grace. This is how it is in the minds of some people, isn't it? We know actually scripturally, Charlie went through 2 Corinthians 3 last week where it says that the law can be written on our heart of stone. And that brings about death. It's the ministration of death. Or the law can be written on a heart of flesh by the Spirit. And that brings about life. So the actual dichotomy is between law and death and law and grace, or law and life. That's the actual dichotomy. It's not law and grace. They're not the things that are opposed to each other. But it's amazing, the people who despise his word, the people who hate Yehovah, how they use grace as opposed to the people who love Yehovah. And it's so telling. They think that they're achieving some kind of balance between the law and grace, because what they actually do is they use grace as a shield to hold up against his word. They use it to despise and hate his word. Oh, no, the word can't get me because of grace, because of grace. They actually want to escape his word. They don't want to embrace it. They don't want to cherish it. They want to escape it. So they'll think, we've got to rely on grace because it's the only thing that we've got. The only thing that we can depend on, because we're certainly not going to do his word. His word sounds terrible. We hate his word. We despise his word. So we're going to put grace as an opposite to it, when they're actually both Yehovah. They're both his word that he gives us grace. This is such an abhorrent meme or whatever. Commandments, law, do. Promises, gospel, done. Jesus has done it. We don't need to think about the word. He's done it. We can just forget about that horrible thing that we do not like to call to our minds, because we know that it brings death, because it's been written on a heart of stone. Psalm 81:15 says, those who hate Yehovah feign obedience. Their time would be forever. And it's so obvious, isn't it? If people do this. All of the word is actually about people who are keeping his Torah. It's only a very modern thing that people have stopped keeping his Torah and said that it's done away with. It was all actually about people who were Torah keepers. But those who hate him, they keep the Torah, they do the Torah, but they feign obedience to it. They pretend to be obedient to it, whereas in their hearts, they despise the word. They revile Yehovah, and they think that they've gotten away with it, and they say, he will not require it. We'll do these bits of it. But he's not going to require me to have done all of it and to have actually turned to him, to shema his voice, to turn and love him with all my heart and all my soul. Because if they actually came to the comprehension of that, they would have to acknowledge the fact that they were going to die and that nothing was going to save them from that, and that their soul would be obliterated. Proverbs 1:22-26 says, how long, you simple ones, would you love simplicity? And shall scoffers delight in their scoffers, and fools hate knowledge? As they do. As I said, Yehovah talks about those who love him and those who hate him. And he talks about this attitude to absolutely everything in existence. You love simplicity. You hate knowledge. Turn at my reproof. See, I pour out my spirit on you. I make my words known to you. Because I called and you refused. I have stretched out my hand and no one inclined. Okay? Harkens back to many are called but few are chosen. And you spurned all my counsel and would not yield to my reproof. Let me also laugh at your calamity, mock when your dread comes. Yeshua said to them, if Elohim were your father, you would love me. Okay? For I came forth from Elohim, and I'm here. For I have not come of myself, but he sent me. Why do you not know what I say? Because you are unable to shema my word. You are of your father the devil, and the desires of your father you wish to do. He was a murderer from the beginning. He has not stood in the truth because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. So Yeshua, again, links here, shemaring the word with loving him. Okay? You're unable to shema my word. And because I speak the truth, you do not believe me. Who of you proves me wrong concerning sin? And if I speak the truth, why do you not believe me? He who is of Elohim shemas the words of Elohim. Therefore, you do not shema because you are not of Elohim. So as I say, we're looking at the concept of love and hate. And scriptures talk very kind of black and white about everything in life. And if they don't love Yehuvah, they love another. And it's amazing the things that the scriptures say that men love. Psalm 4 verse 2 says, till when, O you sons of men, would you turn my esteem to shame? Would you love vapors, seek falsehood? Selah. And they do. The people don't even realize it. They say that they love Yehuvah, but they don't. They love vapors. They love nonsense. They love lying vanities. They love falsehood. And they love it according to scripture. 1 Kings 11, 1-2 says, and King Shlomo loved many foreign women in addition to the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Zidonian, and Hittite women. From the nations of whom Yehovah had said to the children of Israel, you do not go into them, and they do not go into you, for they shall certainly turn your hearts away after their God. Hearts plural, because it's quoting the commandment. They'll turn your hearts away after other gods. Shlomo clung to these in love. And Jehu, son of Hanani, the seer, went out to face him and said to King Jehoshaphat, do you help the wrong and love those who hate Yehovah? Therefore, the wrath of Yehovah is upon you. People don't really understand in their heads, in their conscious thoughts, that they are loving something else. It doesn't really enter into their conscious thought. However, they do delight in whatever it is. They delight in it. And Yehovah recognizes that if they delight in it, then what they're actually doing is they are loving that. So probably to this guy, if you said, do you love those who hate Yehovah? He'd be like, no, there's no way. I don't love those who hate Yehovah. However, in the situation, he chooses to help them. And thereby, Yehovah says that he loves them. Psalm 119, 118, again, you have made light of all those who stray from your laws, for falsehood is their deceit. They have not received the love of the truth. What they have been deceived by, what they love, is their falsehood. This is an interesting one for people to recognize that they actually love these things. Proverbs 18:21, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those loving it eat its fruit. You can love death. It says that Balaam loved the wages of unrighteousness, which is death. Proverbs 8:33-36 says, listen to discipline and become wise and do not refuse it. Blessed is the man who shemas, watching daily at the gates, guarding at the posts of my doors. For whoever finds me finds life and shall obtain favor from Yehovah. But he who sins against me injures himself. All who hate me love death. An astounding and horrible matter has come to be in the land. The prophets have prophesied falsely, and the priests rule by their own hand. And my people have loved it so. And what are you going to do at the end of it? People love all of that false assurance, don't they? Charlie talked about it the other week. The people get together and they'll pat themselves on the back and they'll say how great it is, how great everything's going. Because they love the deceit. They love people speaking false words over them. Because when it comes to the truth, if someone speaks the truth to them, it is condemnation to them because they have not shamad and not received the love of the truth that they may be saved. So what do? The only thing that they can do in that situation is to love the lie. They have to love the deceit because it's the only thing that they can reconcile in their heads that actually makes any sense. Because otherwise they would be saying, this is going to kill me and it's brilliant, which wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. And do not plot evil in your heart against one another, and do not love a false oath. For all these I hate, declares Yehova. And again, people would not say that they love a false oath. But in a situation where a false oath is given and maybe they benefit from it, it brings delight to them. And it is actually loving it in Yehovah's eyes. If you were of the world would love its own. But because you are not of the world, and I chose you out of the world, for that reason, the world hates you. Okay, and this is something that I think people struggle to reconcile as well. When the world doesn't hate them, you struggle to reconcile. They're like, well, you know, I'm called by Yehovah. I'm one of his people, but the world doesn't hate me. But notice what it says. The context of many are called, but few are chosen. I've chosen you out of the world. People will read through the scriptures and they'll be like, all of this applies to me. This is brilliant. This is brilliant. But they'll miss these details which are just there for those with ears to hear. If you are of the world would love its own. But because you are not of the world, and I chose you out of the world, for that reason the world hates you. The world despises you. Ezekiel 33:31. And they come to you as people do, and they sit before you as my people, and they hear your words. And this is the example. Okay, the word that's used here is Shema. But obviously these people don't trust and obey the words because it says, but they do not do them. Okay, so it can just mean to hear something plainly. It depends on the context again. Just like the word Shema. They hear your words, but they do not do them. But with their mouth, they show much love. But their hearts pursue their greedy gain. They show much love. They profess to love these words, but they do not do them. Their hearts, okay, which is where the word goes if you Shema, pursues what is opposite to Yehovah. Their hearts are for what Yehovah hates. Luke 16:13 tells us something incredibly interesting. It says, no servant is able to serve two masters. No one is able to serve two masters, okay? For either he shall hate the one and love the other, or else he shall cling to the one and despise the other. You are not able to serve Elohim and Mammon. And the same thing is true in all respects, to all things. You either love Yehovah, you Shema his words, you Shema his laws, you cherish them, you love Yehovah, or you serve another master. This is what I mean when I say Yehovah is very black and white. He talks about those who love him and those who hate him. And there are so many that think that they love him when they actually, according to the word, hate him absolutely. Malachi 2:17 says, you have wearied Yehovah with your words. And you have said, in what way have we wearied him? In that you say, everyone who does evil is good in the eyes of Yehovah, and he's delighting in them. It's incredible. Think about the church. Think about the church in their sin, who says that now that Jesus died, all their sins are forgiven, they can continue on in sin, and Yehovah delights in his people. I don't know what particular lie this was that was in the minds of the people that Malachi was talking to, but this is one of those things where the word is just true generation after generation after generation. It manifests in different ways. Everyone who does evil is good in the eyes of Yehova. Don't worry about it. Yehova loves you. Don't worry about it. You know, you want to please Yehova, don't you? Yeah, I want to please Yehova. Well, that's fine. That's all that it takes. Okay, just as long as you want to please him, then you'll get there eventually. He'll refine you with his word. Okay, so what the word actually says is, you're hating Yehova at the moment because you're choosing something other than him, and you cannot serve two masters. You either serve Yehova or you serve another. Isaiah 44, 8-19 says, do not fear nor be afraid. Have I not since made you hear and declared it? You are my witnesses. Is there an Eloah beside me? There is no other rock, I know not one. Those who make an idol, all of them are emptiness, and their delights do not profit. And they are their own witnesses. They neither see nor know, so that they are put to shame. Okay, all those who make an idol, we know what idols are. All of them are emptiness. All of them are lying vanities. Who would form a god and cast an idol that is of no value? You'd ask that question, but everyone would be a fairly accurate answer. See, all his companions are ashamed, and the workmen, they are but men. Let them be gathered together. Let them stand up. Let them fear. Let them be put to shame altogether. The craftsman in iron with the tools works, one in the coals, and fashions it with hammers and works it with the strength of his arms. It's him that's fashioning this thing. Even so, he shall be hungry, he has no strength, he drinks no water and is weary. This idol is nothing to him, it's emptiness. And yet people will cling to these things as if they're going to bring them salvation. The carpenter stretches out his rule. He outlines it with chalk, he fashions it with a plane, and he outlines it with the compass and makes it like the figure of a man, according to the comeliness of a man, to remain in the house. You see what these people are doing? They're creating an idol after their own image. They're fashioning these things. This person measures it out with his rule. He outlines it himself. He outlines it with chalk. He fashions it himself. He makes it like unto the figure of a man. He changed the living Elohim into an image which is something that he appreciates. He cuts down cedars for himself and takes cypress and oak, which he raised among the trees of the forest. This is the most amazing thing. He has planted the pine, and the rain nourishes it. It's Yehova who brings forth this thing. He's like, this is going to be brilliant. I'm going to make this idol. It's going to be fantastic. I've got all the designs for it, how it should be. I'll plant this tree that's going to turn into this idol. And then what is it? It's Yehova who is actually bringing this thing into being so that he can sin by it. And it shall be for a man to burn, for he takes some of it and warms himself. He also kindles it and shall bake bread. He also makes a god and bows himself to it. He's made it a carved image and falls down before it. So he uses this idol. And this reminds me of, again, people profaning the Sabbath. And he'll warm himself by it. He'll get his provision from this idol. He thinks that he's benefiting himself by it. He warms himself by it. He bakes bread by it. All the while ignoring Yehovah. Half of it he shall burn in the fire. With this half he eats meat. He roasts a roast and is satisfied. He also warms himself and says, aha, I am warm. I have seen the fire. Thinks everything's going great. Thinks everything's going brilliantly. You fashion this idol. Look, this idol's now providing me with warmth. It's providing me with food. This is brilliant. My idol's the best God that there's ever been. And the rest of it he makes into a god, his carved image. He falls down before it and worships, prays to it and says, deliver me, for you are my God. This is where this God falls short. They do not know nor understand, for he has smeared their eyes from seeing and their hearts from understanding. Wow. No one recalls it to heart, nor is there knowledge nor understanding to say, I have burned half of it in the fire, I have also baked bread on its coals. I have roasted meat and eaten it, and shall I make the rest of it an abomination? Should I fall down before a log of wood? Feeding on ashes, a deceived heart turns him aside, and he does not deliver his soul, nor says, is there not a lie in my right hand? Doesn't know, got no comprehension. The only thing that this person perceives is what is right in front of them. They're nourishing themselves as a result of this, not realizing they're feeding on ashes. A deceived heart turns them aside. No one's going to know who's in this position until they're right there before Yehova, and there's just nothing. There's nothing at all. There's none of this. They can't fool themselves with anything. All of it is just in an instant going to just be exposed for the emptiness and the worthlessness that it is. But this is the religion of most people. They won't seek Yehovah. They won't shema his word, so they don't end up loving him. They don't end up doing it. They don't end up having that faith. And they end up in this position because they can't do anything else other than create for themselves an idol and then think everything's going brilliantly because of this idol that they've created. So we come to this question, okay? Obviously from this verse. And then I shall declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work lawlessness. Charlie looked at an aspect that comes from this last week, okay? Those who are known by Yehovah are those who are in covenant with him. The word's got more to say on the issue. 1 Corinthians 8 verse 3 says, but if anyone loves Elohim, this one is known by him. And again, it's one of those statements that people can read and go, oh, I love Elohim. But we've seen what it is to love Elohim. We've seen where that love for Elohim comes from. The only place that it can stem from. They've all got their own idea of what it is to love Elohim, but they don't arrive there from shemaing the word. So it's not a true love for Elohim. It's a love for Elohim that goes so far until they actually end up despising him and lightly esteeming him. John 10, 3-5 says, the doorkeeper opens for him and the sheep hear his voice. And he calls his own sheep by name and he leads them out. So the sheep shema his voice and he leads them out. And when he has brought out his own sheep, he goes before them and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. Okay, they've shema'd it, they've begun to understand. And they shall by no means follow a stranger, but shall flee from him, because they do not know the voice of strangers, and they do not love the voice of strangers either. I am the good shepherd, and I know mine, and mine know me. So who are the ones that Yeshua knows? The ones that he knew from the beginning of time. Even as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, I lay down my life for the sheep. My sheep shema my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. So these are the ones who are his. He says, I know mine. Who are the ones who are mine? The ones who shema his voice. John 14, 21-24 says, he who possesses my commands and cherishes them, it is he who loves me. And he who loves me shall be loved by my Father, and I shall love him and manifest myself to him. Yehuda, not the one from Kerioth, Judas Iscariot, said to him, Master, what has come about that you are able to manifest yourself to us and not to the world? Yeshua answered him, if anyone loves me, he shall cherish my word, and my Father shall love him, and we shall come to him and make our stay with him. He who does not love me does not cherish my words, and the word which you hear is not mine, but of the Father who sent me. Okay? So how do we know those who love Yehovah? When everybody in Christianity claims to love Yehovah, the ones who actually cherish his words, and it becomes obvious very, very quickly who actually cherishes his words and who lightly esteems them. It's him who loves Yeshua, or Yehovah, and he who does not love him is the one who does not cherish his words. Romans 8:29 tells us, because those whom he knew beforehand, so when he says, I never knew you, he knew these people right from the beginning. Those whom he knew beforehand, he also ordained beforehand to be conformed to the likeness of his Son, for him to be firstborn among many brothers. Okay? You cannot help but be conformed to the image of Yeshua if you shema the word. If you shema the word, you cannot come to another destination other than to be conformed to the image of Yeshua. And therefore, you're one who he knows when he comes back, because he knew you from before the world began. So how does Yehova get to know you? This is know in a different sense of the word. Deuteronomy 13, 1-4 says, when there arises among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and he shall give you a sign or wonder, and the sign or wonder shall come true of which he has spoken to you, saying, let us go after other gods whom you have not known and serve them. Do not listen to the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for Yehova your Elohim is trying you to know whether you love Yehova your Elohim with all your heart and all your soul. That's how he gets to know you. Know what's truly in your heart. Because you can profess to love him. You fail the test that shows that you love him, then you don't. Walk after Yehova your Elohim and fear him and cherish his commands and shema his voice and serve him and cling to him. You see how it's all just this intricately woven. Deuteronomy 8, God to do every command which I command you today, or cherish to do every command which I command you today, that you might live and shall increase and go in and shall possess the land of which Yehova swore to your fathers. And you shall remember that Yehova your Elohim led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you, to prove you, to know what is in your heart, whether you cherish his commands or not. So verse 3 says, and he humbled you and let you suffer hunger and fed you with manna which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, to make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of Yehova. Your garments did not wear out on you, nor did your foot blister these 40 years. Thus you shall know in your heart that as a man disciplines his son, so Yehova your Elohim disciplines you. Therefore you shall cherish the commands of Yehova your Elohim, to walk in his ways and to fear him. So this is the reasoning, okay? He's doing all this and he's doing it for a reason, and this is the reason that he's doing it. Yehova your Elohim is bringing you into a good land, a land of streams of water, of fountains and springs that flow out of valleys and hills. Yeah, that's what the millennium's going to be like. A land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey. A land in which you eat bread without scarcity, in which you do not lack at all. A land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills you dig copper. And you shall eat and be satisfied, and shall bless Yehova your Elohim for the good land which he has given you. Be on guard lest you forget Yehova your Elohim by not cherishing his commands and his judgments and his laws which I command you today. So the reason that he's doing it, the reason that he wants to know what's in our hearts, is because he's going to bring us to a land that's going to be so amazing. We're going to have complete lack of want in the land. See, Adam and Eve lived in a place like this. They lived in the Garden of Eden. And he could have just allowed them to dwell there forever. And you know, if it's in a man's heart to please himself, to do what makes sense, then you just continue forever and you're like, oh yes, it's fine here. I don't even need to sin. He would never know what is in a man's heart unless he tests them. So what did he do? He sent the tester. Sent Hasatan along with the temptation to them. You know, he could have just left the tree of the knowledge of good and evil out of the garden if he wanted to. But that wouldn't have really achieved what he wanted. He didn't want a people who just did what was right just because that was the best thing for them to do. It harks back into what we were talking about at the beginning, your reasoning for actually keeping the commands. He wants a people that he knows what's in their heart, that he's brought them tribulation, he's brought them testing, and they've decided what's right. And this is the entire reason, because he's going to bring them to this land. He's going to bring us to this land. So he wants to know what's in our hearts. He's going to bring us to a place that's even more amazing than this. This was in the fallen creation before the world was renewed. Lest you eat and be satisfied and build lovely houses and shall dwell in them. and your herds and your flocks increase, and your silver and your gold are increased, and all that you have is increased, that your heart then becomes lifted up, and you forget Yehova your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim from the house of bondage. This he doesn't want to happen. Okay? He doesn't want it to take us all to the millennium, to give us a place which is so amazing, and we go, this place is amazing, we'll just forget about Yehova now, because what's the point in even thinking about him? Who led you through that great and awesome wilderness, fiery serpents and scorpions and thirst, where there was no water, who brought water for you out of the flinty rock, who fed you in the wilderness with manna which your fathers did not know, in order to humble you and to try you, to do you good in the end. And so he leads us through this wilderness of life, if you want to be a little bit cliched. You then shall say in your heart, my power and the strength of my hand have made for me this wealth. But you shall remember Yehova your Elohim, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, in order to establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers, as it is today. And it shall be, if you by any means forget Yehova your Elohim, and follow other gods and serve them, and bow yourself to them, I have warned you this day that you shall certainly perish. This is him swearing the oath to them. Okay, he swears that they will perish. He swears in, like I said before, Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28, that their descendants will then be kicked out of the land, and Israel will not dwell there anymore. Like the nations which Yehova is destroying before you, so you are to perish, because you did not shema the voice of Yehova your Elohim.